Shalom, mishpacha. I just wanted to quickly say before the video starts that I had quite a few technical difficulties recording this. You're going to see the image jumping a little bit here and there, as well as some lighting differences in more than half of the video. I didn't realize until after I had recorded. And actually, I had to record over 2 different days because there's just been a lot going on. And then in the middle of recording on the second day, my phone just stopped recording because it ran out of storage. So this ending is abrupt, but will continue in part 2. Obviously, Abba has been completely in control of everything because I hadn't even realized at the time it stopped recording that it had nearly reached an hour. I felt like I wasn't even halfway through. This message is so much bigger than I realized, and it's a challenging one to deliver. However, all of my challenges that I've been facing have been a huge part of teaching me all about the deeper meaning of this message. He truly has purpose in every single moment of our lives, even the struggles. He's been leading me to spend less time in the edit, so you won't see as many of the words in the Otiot broken down on the screen, but I do go into much detail talking about them. Here we go. Shalom, guys. Sorry that this is kind of a weird setup right now. This is the only place I can put my phone. As soon as I get where I'm going, which is the causeway at the water's edge, but when I get there, I can adjust the phone so then you won't be staring at my steering wheel. It's also going to take me a little bit of time to adjust, loosen up, and let go. Abba's really switching things up. When he said in my last video about how he's doing something new, yeah, as usual, he meant a lot more than I realized. Well, here we are at the causeway, Palmasola Bay. The water is kind of looking like a weird color today. Sometimes it's really pretty blue and sometimes it's not. Got some doggies enjoying the beach. You guys see that wah right in front of us? I see it. Okay, I think that should be good. I came out here because, you know, to get away from the distractions in my house and clear my head. Suach. I was trying to do this without my sunglasses, but my eyes are really sensitive and it's a pretty sunny day, so I need them, so I'm going to keep them on. So, since the last video, desire, just a whole lot. My time with Abba has been indescribable, and so is the message that he wants me to deliver. So this is kind of tough. I keep thinking about Jonah because, you know, he was running away because he didn't want to deliver the message that Abba was giving him to deliver, and I feel like I'd like to run away. And that's kind of hard to describe, you know. It's not that I don't want to do this. It's just the fear of messing it up. You know, not delivering correctly, because when you start to receive the deep understanding of Abba Father Yahweh and his purpose and his truth, there really are no words, honestly. You know, each one of these deliveries has been a process of time and relationship with Him. If you remember back when I did the video about Kana, which means that He is our provider, and the concrete model that goes with that word, parent birds gather everything for their nest and they provide everything for their baby birds, and when the babies are ready, venture out of the nest, but they have to take that jump, they have to let go. And it's funny because the words have been in my mind, just gotta wing it. I get that now, wing it, wings, birds, fly. When I saw Caregiver's announcement for the next live stream with the thumbnail, that's what Abba used really to say, okay, Tiffany, now it's time. Key of knowledge, a key and a keyhole. You see how similar they are. This study is all about the key of knowledge that Yeshua told us was taken away. When we study that word, you'll get it. You'll get why the thumbnail for Caregiver's video was a sign to me. And while I was making the last video for Desire, even though I said, because he told me, this is the completion of this series, but it is also the jumping off point to a new beginning. And that's when he had me read that scripture. He wants us to understand that everything that we learned in that hidden knowledge series, we're taking it with us. Each study that comes is not its own study. They all go together. And that package that he gave us, all about his living word, the hidden knowledge is the living word. Hidden is something that you can't see. Written words you can see. The hidden knowledge is something that you can only get from the unseen Elohim, Yahweh. After Desire was out, he had me in limbo for a while, talking to me about all of what he wanted in the next video, but not putting it together for me. And then finally he told me, your next message is going to be on the key of knowledge. And I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. Hello, he just gave us the hidden knowledge package, and now he's giving us the key of knowledge. But that's really where his specific direction stopped. And ever since then, what I looked at as busyness just fell upon me. All of a sudden, there was all this stuff to do. Now, I only have 2 kids, and I don't know how people do it with more than 2, but the last couple of weeks have been extremely full of occupying. I don't like busyness. I don't like plans. I don't like schedules, calendars, clocks. I don't like being bound by anything. I don't like commitments. But all of a sudden, here I was, and I was like, Abba, what am I going to do? How are we going to do the next message? How am I going to have time to sit down and spend time with you? That was when he was like, what are you talking about? Have you forgotten that I teach you through living experience? It takes me a while to get something through my thick head. How much has he been talking to us about living experience? He was talking to us about living experience with Alan's messages. It's all about living experience. And what he has taught me over the last couple of weeks as he's been walking with me is way more than he ever could have taught me with my head in a book, or sitting down with a pen and paper and doing Otiot studies. He brings his word to life in our lives. And if we are reaching for him, if we are truly desiring him and his will for our lives, because we know that his will is perfect, if that's how we are walking, it doesn't matter what it is that we're doing. He's teaching us through our life experiences. It's really important that you understand that even though the title of this message is the key of knowledge, and however many other messages there are on the key of knowledge. You cannot receive the key from anyone or anywhere, including the written scriptures. You can only receive the key from Yahweh himself. So this video in itself, this message is not going to unlock the prison doors for you. It takes you stretching out your hand and receiving the key from Yahweh. And that's what this message is all about. And we're going to go through the scripture where Yeshua talks about the key of knowledge. We're going to hone in on a couple of words, and honestly, he would not write my notes for this message. He is pushing me out of the nest, telling me that it's time for me to take the big trust fall. It's time for me to let go and trust him to deliver this message through me. You know, I have my notes, but I don't have notes for this message. So bear with me. So the first thing that I have to say before we get into the words for the key of knowledge, we really can't go any further in these messages without just understanding the more mature models. Because when you see these words, it's pretty obvious. You know, there's been a whole lot of hinting, and hopefully you've been watching Caregivers' messages at the same time as mine, because our messages go together. And that is nothing of our doing. That is all Abba Father Yahweh. He is using us together. So the more mature models that I'm talking about, you got to understand that that's what Abba Yahweh gave us. He gave us models. He gave us models from the very beginning through his creation. Satan, the seed of opposition, has worked very hard to distort those models and give everybody a bad taste of it. I understand that a lot of people have a lot of hurt in their lives when it comes to the subject of intimacy. Somebody's initial thought of using these models to talk about the word of Yahweh might cause them to be uncomfortable at first. But it's important that you understand that that is only the seed of opposition causing that discomfort. Because if you go all the way back to the beginning of creation, you will understand the beauty in everything that Abba Father created, and that he created it all very purposeful. And we've been talking a lot about our body and how he created everything about our bodies inside and out, and all of the functions, all of the body systems, very purposeful. All truth is modeled inside of us. And it's significant that he started the messages on this channel. The very first message was Shekan. And I didn't choose that. Abba Father chose that. And the way that he did it was really special. And if you have seen my first couple of videos, I'm pretty sure you know that story. But Shekan is all about how he dwells in us, how we are the Mishkan. And you have to understand that to understand the key. Very, very important, because the key enters us. Because the prison that our minds are enslaved in is also us. Think about the part of the hidden knowledge message that's all about the battle of the mind. That all happens within us. That phrase that they say really is true, you know, that we are our own worst enemy. Why is that? It's because the seed of opposition can only work by growing in us as well and enslaving our minds. And that's the battle between the two seeds. And if we didn't have that battle, we wouldn't have a reason to reach out for Yahweh. How much conflict do you see in Scripture? The whole entire book is all models of this battle of the mind. In that first video, Shekan, I talked about how I feel like Moshe sometimes. I understand when he was standing at the burning bush and Abba Father is talking to him and giving him all of these instructions, and Moshe's just like, but I can't. I don't have the words. I don't know how to speak. And that is exactly how I feel every time I go to do these messages. What if I don't do it right? No matter what, the English words that I'm using will never be good enough. So coming back to the functions of our bodies and the more mature models of all of our different body systems and body functions, it is the most intimate one, the reproductive system and how that all works. And if you saw my last video, hopefully you saw that's what Aman is all about, and that's what desire is all about. And so when we're getting down to these deep messages, there are tons of models, but it is the most intimate models that are the most revealing. So now we've been talking a lot about the rod, and remember, the rod of Yahweh all through Scripture represents His power, His work, His doing, which all comes through His living word. And I'm just going to tell you right now that the key is YHWH, ECHAD. And it's hit me really hard over the past month. YHWH ECHAD is so much deeper than we realize. It is not only Yahweh and His living word and His Ruach together that He wants us to understand. He wants us to understand that it is about Him and His word and His breath in us. If you saw my study about ECHAD, it's all about unity. It's all about becoming one. And YHWH ECHAD is about Him becoming one with us. And I am not able to explain that to you. So you have to talk to Him about that. But it's going to start to become more clear once we're studying these words today. So also, I don't know how He's going to give me, He's really not telling me anything. He's only giving me the next step in front of me. So I don't know yet how He's going to have me edit this, because the last several videos have been a lot of pictures. And it does take a lot of time to put all of the Otiot up there with all of the words. And from what I understand, He doesn't want me to spend as much time on the edit this time. But I think I am going to be putting up some pictures and some Otiot, but I am going to record the whole time like this, just talking to you guys. So I'm going to read the scripture, Luke 11:52, in the Hallelujah Scriptures. But of course, as I've told you guys many times with all scriptures, it really says so much more in the original word. In the Otiot, in the deeper levels of these scriptures, it says way more than what is there. Really, the language that we're speaking, English and all other languages pretty much, are so westernized that the whole mindset is about either or. And the original language is not that at all. It's always both. It's never either or. And that's really how the scriptures were written. Every verse is really showing you negative and positive in both. And it's showing you the difference with or without Yahweh. The whole entire word is teaching us with or without Yahweh inside us, guiding us. So chew on that. Ask Him to teach you about that. To receive the key of knowledge, you have to be able to let go. You have to be able to let go of the written word, the Bible. And please understand, I'm not saying like let go as in like you don't read it anymore. What I'm saying by let go is that you are not tied to looking at the exact wording of the scriptures and you are following that. That is what you are basing your life on and how you walk. you are in big trouble if that's what you are doing. The Bible is not your God, but that's what his people have made it into. You also have to be able to let go of every teaching that you've ever received from man. You cannot be bound by the teachings of men. I don't care if every word that comes out of a teacher's mouth, whether it's a pastor or me or whoever it is that you're listening to, even if every word that comes out of their mouth is true, if you are just taking their word for it, and that is what your belief is based on, then you don't have the key. It is Yahuwah who causes Aman through his living word, his counsel, his rod. If you can't let go of these things, then you really cannot claim that you serve the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't have a Bible. Everyone needs to understand that. For thousands of years, Yahweh's people walked this earth without any written word. And even after the Bible started to be written, nobody had Bibles in their homes for a long time. There were no printing presses. It took a lot to make one Bible. They came to the temple to hear it read. So I've asked Abba, why did we need the written word when we did? You know, and when I'm saying like the written word, I'm not even, I'm talking about the Bible that everybody goes by, because there are a lot more writings that are not in our Bibles that are inspired of Yahuwah. And, you know, the original written word, the Otiot, was given to Enoch way, way, way back before the flood. And that's what we're studying. But even that, the Otiot, this is why I'm always saying it's not the images, it's not the pictures. It's the models and concepts that they teach, which are the models and concepts of life. And the reason that the written word was given was for a witness, not to be our God, not to be an Elohim to us, not to walk by. We don't walk by the words of the Bible. We walk by the living word of Yahuwah. His written word is to be a witness. But the written word that we have today, there is only a fraction of truth left in the scene. And the rest is still there, but it is hidden. And the hidden parts of Scripture can only be unlocked by the key of Yahuwah. Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, even Moshe, Moses himself, walked without the written word, and then was given the task of writing down what he received from the living word. So I'm going to read this scripture now. Woe to you, learned in the Torah, because you took away the key of knowledge. You did not enter in yourselves, and those who were entering in you hindered. So now here he's talking to the Pharisees, but the Pharisees represent all of the people who claim to worship the one true Elohim, whatever they call him. Everyone who claims to follow the Bible and think that they have it because they know the written word and they go by the written word. The first three words here in the original language, which they translated into woe to you who are learned, or woe to you wise men. Those three original words, all three of them talk about desire. And the second two are kaf mem, the word that we did in the last video. So in other words, this scripture is all about desire. The first word, which is translated to woe, also comes from the root of desire. It's a different word, aleph wa, but it is also talking about desire. And the second word is a word that we saw in the scripture that we did in the last video. It's lamed kaf mem. It's talking about the rod of desire. But in this case, what we're seeing him say here is talking about those who are using the rod of opposition. Remember, every word has a positive and negative. These are those who are using the magic wand. And you're going to see that even more as we go along. And the third word comes from the root wisdom. That's why it's translated in a lot of scriptures, wise men. It comes from the word chokmah, which, again, if you saw my last video, I mentioned in there that the root of chokmah, wisdom, is kaf mem. It is desire. Many are saying that they desire truth. Many claim to worship the Father, and they are desiring to know His Word, but they are desiring for the wrong reasons. And I've mentioned before that when you're looking in the Hebrew of the renewed covenant, because it's all translated from Greek, because they tell us that was what it was originally written in, which is a bunch of poop. The different versions in Hebrew differ, use different words, and even put the words in different order because that's how Hebrew is, but they'll always have the same or similar meanings. The other version that I use is not the word chokmah, it is the word ba'ali, beit, ayin, lamed, yod. And it really means like a ruler or a master. Yeah, that's the same as how we get Baal, which is really talking about a master or a ruler. Baal is not a name. A lot of people pronounce it Baal or Baal, whatever. It's pronounced Baal, and it just means master. People have mistaken it to be a name, just like they have mistaken Satan to be a name, which Satan really just is talking about opposition. That's what the root of the word Satan is opposition. He is the seed of opposition, and which is why the word accuser is used, because he comes against us to accuse us. But my point here is, I didn't even do this on purpose. Abba left us off in a study of desire. This scripture about the key of knowledge starts off with desire, but it's talking about desiring for the wrong reasons. And if you keep going, you understand it's those who desire to rule over the Torah, those who not only desire to rule over the Torah, it's a deeper understanding is that they are ruled by the Torah. They are bound by the Torah. If you understand the Pharisees, they went by the books. They were stuck to the written scriptures. And, they, by this time of Yeshua speaking to them, they already had the book of Jeremiah, which makes it very clear that, the scriptures have been in the wrong hands. I've talked about that a few times. And maybe this would be a good time to just mention that Abba told me not too long ago, in the middle of the night, he woke me up telling me in the hands of the government. And I asked him when I was waking up, because I woke up saying it, repeating it. And so as I was waking up, I asked him, what's in the hands of the government? And he said, the written word. And it's Ben. And the government is just a word meaning like those who are in charge of the world, those who are running the world. The puppets being used by the seed of opposition. So, don't forget that anything that you can see and touch can be corrupted. We saw examples of that in the last video as well. As soon as something comes into the scene, it is able to be corrupted. And that is why our Elohim rules from the unseen. And that is why, again, that Yeshua did not set up his kingdom here while he was walking here in the scene. He was making a point. He was making a tau that he did not come here to rule in the seen. He rules from the unseen. So this part has several meanings. It's talking about those who are ruled by the Torah, the written word, and also those who rule over the Torah, who manipulate it and use it to manipulate and to enslave. And we can really see that in the word that was translated to take away. It says, you took away the key of knowledge. Now, that word, I actually have two different words for that one also, because the two different versions use two different words. One of them is the word lakok, which is the word we also known as taken, like rapture. It is where everybody gets the word rapture from. That word means take away. And the other word is even more telling, talking about conjuring. It is a word that it comes all the way down to, this is really crazy, it comes all the way down to the concrete meaning of a cauldron, like a pot. Now, what do you think of when you think of a cauldron? A witch, right? And, where they make their concoctions. And it has to do with filling. They fill up the cauldron with their own concoction and they conjure up. And it also has to do with ruling and specifically turning attention. So the seed of opposition is all about stealing the attention, taking attention away from Yahweh, turning our attention elsewhere, because that is the only way that we can be corrupted. Abba always reminds me of the story of Balaam and the donkey, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but it's very, very important, because in the story of Balaam and the donkey, he's being hired to curse the Israelites, but he can't. Hashatan cannot curse us himself. He cannot corrupt us himself. It has to be our decision. It has to be an agreement. This goes all the way back to the garden. And we find out after Balaam was not able to curse the Israelites, he came up with a plan. And his plan was, well, hey, I can't curse them because they're protected by Yahweh, Elohim, but I know how to get them to curse themselves. I know how to get them to corrupt themselves. And that's when he sent in bait. His plan was to turn the attention, and he sent whores in to make them turn their head, get their attention on something that they are seeing in the flesh, and they go after their fleshly desires. James 1:14 says, "But each one is enticed when he is drawn away by his own desires and trapped. Then, when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it has been accomplished, brings forth death." Now, remember what sin is. It's missing the mark that we're headed towards right now on this journey, yoked to Abba Father Yahweh. So remember, if we're yoked to Yahweh on this journey, no matter how much we stumble, no matter how much we kick against the goad, if we keep that yoke on, we're going to hit the mark. We're going to make a bullseye. We're not going to miss it, because he doesn't miss. When we're not yoked to Yahweh, I don't care how hard you're trying to make that mark by memorizing scriptures or going to church every week or doing all of your good deeds. If you're not being led by the unseen Elohim, if you're not being led by his Ruach, and we've talked about this, the oxen being yoked, that is a model in the scene that he gave us to teach us about the unseen. But we've also talked a lot about the Ruach, and which is the breath of Yahweh, and which we're going to talk about more in this study. It is like the wind, where we can't see the wind, but we know, because we can see the effects of the wind, that it changes direction without any notice. We don't know ahead of time which way the wind will blow. We don't know ahead of time the instruction that Yahweh is going to give us for this situation or that situation. We're not supposed to have it all planned out. Oh, by the way, that word that means to conjure up, taken away, or removed, other words that come from that word are government as well as prison. Both of those words, prison and government, come from this same root word. So this scripture is really saying, woe to those who think that they are desiring the truth, but are actually being ruled by the written word instead of the unseen Elohim. They're not actually walking with him. They're relying on the written translations of men, and that's where their so-called belief is coming from. Those who are teaching who do not have the key of knowledge, the key of Yahweh, they are leading astray, because the seed of opposition is what's working in them, and the seed of opposition knows exactly what he's doing. He's using the written words to enslave, and that was the plan. We live in a world of enslavement, and that's why he gave us the written word when he did. When did the Bible that we have today start to be written? Besides the book of Job, which was earlier, the Torah started to be written with Moshe after the rescue. The reason why they were given the Torah after the rescue is because they had become enslaved for hundreds of years. When you are enslaved, you forget how to think for yourself. They did not know how to think anymore, and Yahweh had to teach them. This is why he gave the written word, but when he gave it, it was all models, teaching us how to find him. What we have today has been manipulated and corrupted, and that was the point. Abba didn't want us to rely on the seen. He wants us to rely on him. So the next word, which is only in one of the versions that I use, that they didn't translate, is, again, the rod of desire. It is Lamed Kaf Mem. So they're taking away the true rod of Yahweh, his true counsel, his living word, and they are conjuring up their own. So this is the imprisonment. This is the enslavement. This is how the seed of opposition works. He works through man to enslave, but he walks disguised. He is disguised to look like light. And remember, what is that word light? That word light has to do with order. If you remember, I think it was in the Return to Innocence video is when we studied that, but I've mentioned it a couple of times, that light has to do with order. Order is the meaning of debar, the word. So Satan, the seed of opposition, is disguised to look like the word of Yahweh. So how are we to discern without him, without the Creator himself? And by the way, one of those Aleph Tau words are right here that they also did not translate. Remember, we've talked a lot about the Aleph Tau, which is huge. The Aleph Tau, the beginning and the end. There is no beginning or end. It's really the beginning meeting the end and starting over again. It's a cycle. We are in a time continuum right now. So there is a beginning and end to this time continuum, but really there is no beginning or end, and Yahweh is outside of time. But the Aleph Tau is so significant, and it was all throughout the word. It is all throughout the word, everywhere. And if you saw, I think it was like part 1 3/4 of the Hidden Knowledge series, the Aleph Tau is the root word of Otiot, what we are studying. So far in the scripture, we are seeing, woe to those who desire to rule over the Torah and be ruled by the Torah, the written word, thinking that they are wise and they've got it, when really they're just conjuring up their own understanding, leaning on their own understanding, or relying on those who are the puppets and teaching the seed of opposition, because that's what they have growing in them and they don't even realize. And they have taken away the true rod that guides us on the way to the mark from Aleph to Tau. That's what we have so far in this scripture. And then the next words are the key of knowledge. Now the word for key is maftach, and this is so huge. So prepare yourself for this one. Mem, Pe, Tau, Chet. Now that is the word ki. The child root is just Pe, Tau, Chet, which is patach. This word literally means a hole for entering, or entering through a hole. So what does a key do? Well, a key is for a keyhole. The key goes inside the hole. This word is also translated a lot of times as the word open or door. So we see this word all over Scripture, but with the mem in front of it is when it's translated to key. I hope you've been talking to Abba about the mem. We've been talking about it a lot in these videos, and it is huge. It is so important, and it is about the inner workings. Has a lot to do with the rod, what opens. It is what unlocks the door of the prison of our mind. That's what this key is about. We are enslaved. We are imprisoned by corruption. That enslavement is unseen. We are enslaved in our minds. We have the story of the Israelites being enslaved to give us a model. And then Moshe was used to use the key to bust them out of jail. The model of the living word, rescuing. Now remember how it goes, the story. It says that the Israelites were enslaved for all these years, and then they began to cry out to their Elohim. Where'd they find that information to do that? In the Bible? No. The Bible did not exist. They did not have written words to tell them to call out to their Elohim for help. That's very important to understand. So Yahweh used Moshe to be the one to come in with the key to rescue them. But if you know the story that follows, it's not a story of happily ever after and everybody became transformed and that's it. No, all through that there were problems, all through the wilderness they complained. They even wanted to go back to enslavement. They were not set free by the written word. Even after they came into the promised land, it's battle after battle after battle. We are going through battle of the mind until we're transformed. And transformation will not come by any man or by anything in the scene. Transformation is what happens at the real rescue. The only one who can unlock the prison doors of our mind is Yahweh with his living word, his ruach, his breath, working together in us. The key enters us, which brings me to one of the parent roots. The main parent root of this word is Pe Tau. Pe Tau means a hole for a post. It is a picture of a post entering a hole, a rod entering a hole. There are many models of this, but I'm just going to tell you what the lexicon says. A hole made for inserting something, the act of intercourse. Yeah, this is the most ancient understanding of this word. The model given to teach us about what this is, the model in the scene is the act of intercourse, to teach us about what's going on in the unseen. That Yahweh has to enter us. And what happens, hopefully you got all of the hints that Yahweh gave us in the last video. What happens as a result of this rod entering the hole? The seed is released. In other words, the seed is received and takes root and starts to grow and results in a new birth. Now, catch your breath because it gets even better. Another root for this word is pechet, and it means to blow. Now, we've talked about the model of Yeshua, the living word, blowing on his talmudim, saying, receive the Ruach HaKodesh. But also, think about how in my last video we talked about this model of how he enters us, this model of salvation, and how Yeshua, the living word in mankind, the example of Miriam receiving that seed through the Ruach HaKodesh. So clearly you understand, all of these models are talking about the unseen. Okay? Yahweh did not come down and have intercourse in the physical with Miriam. So understand what these models are about. We have the model of how she received the seed of Yahweh through his Ruach, his breath, is how she received the seed of the living word to take root in her. Now, in the details of the lexicon, I'm going to mention this word also talks about air causing fire to get hotter. You know, when you blow on fire, fire starts going out. What do? You blow on it. And another root for this word is tau chet, and it means to divide. It's talking about a spear or a sword. Who is our sword? Yeshua, the living word, who divides us from the world, separates us. There is so much going on in this one word, the key. You might want to pause the video here and chew for a while. And actually, I'm going to have to take a break because it's getting late and I have to get back to take my son to BMX. So I'm going to continue this study tonight with knowledge. Okay, so it's actually the next day. I didn't have time to continue the recording last night, so I actually am at the same spot again today at the water's edge, and I'm going to pick up where I left off. But first of all, I'm using a different camera this time because I was using my old phone to record yesterday and it's having some issues, but the only reason I was using it is because this phone that I'm using now often overheats. So I'm hoping that it doesn't do that. But I'm going to try and move through the rest of this quickly. But first, before we continue on with where we left off with the word knowledge, I wanted to go back because I wanted to mention some things that I didn't yesterday. First of all, when you're looking at the scripture and the word that was translated to wise men or the learned ones or whatever in the Torah, in one of the translations I was looking at uses the word lawyers, and I thought that that was interesting. And in one of the roots of Ba'ali, one of those roots is ayin lamed, which means work or yoke. Actually, the most ancient understanding is experience the yoke. So ayin is experience and lamed is the yoke. So this is all about work, and the positive and negative here is that if we are yoked to Yahweh, then it is his work. It is the work of the living word in us. And if we are yoked to anything else, not being directed by the Ruach, the unseen Ruach inside of us, being directed by Yahweh himself, and instead we are being directed by anything else. For example, if we are yoked to the pages of the Bible, the written word that has been translated over thousands of years by man, touched by the hands of corruption, then it is the hands of man that we are being led by. It is the work of man. And this is this whole idea of works. This is when people get into thinking that they are saved by their own works, by what they do, and they try and do that by following the exact words of Scripture, which is actually the work of another man. So it's all about being in the hands of man. And what is interesting about that because that's what this scripture is talking about, right? Yeshua is talking to those who are all about works. And the very next word, Torah, we've gone into that word before, but I wanted to bring it up again because this is very important. Remember that the word Torah, the most ancient understanding of what Torah means, teachings, it is actually the direction that one takes in life. It has to do with a flow. It has to do with the direction that you're going. And, think about the Ruach when you're thinking about this word, because if we are being led by the true Torah of Yahweh, the true teachings of Yahweh, remember what we've learned about his Ruach. If we are being guided by his Ruach, and the wind is our model of that if we are on his path, we are being guided by his Ruach. That is the direction that we are going in life, and we don't know ahead of time. And this is why in Yaakov and James, I think it is, that it tells us that we're not supposed to plan ahead. He guides our steps. We can't even see the next 10 steps ahead of us. We can only see the next step. And we've talked a couple times before about how one of the roots of Torah, which is Yar, Yod Resh, is hands of man. And so this is about whether we are taking matters into our own hands or we are reaching out for the yoke of Yahweh to put that on so that we are directed by him. And we are leaving everything in his hands because we have his yoke on us, his living word, his counsel, his rod. Are we being steered by the Ruach of Yahweh who dwells inside of us? Or are we being steered by the work of the hands of man? Because it is that work of the hands of man that takes away, that removes and hinders the rod of Yahweh, the rod that guides us from Aleph to Tau, and the rod that is the key that opens the door of salvation, that divides us from the world, from corruption. So here we are at the word knowledge, and this is the word hadat. And dat is actually the child root here. It is dalet ayin tau, and the hey is added in the front of it, hadat, which in modern times they really just used it as of, key of knowledge. But of course we know that the hey, it's all about the unseen. It's all about what we are in awe of, and it's all about where our attention is at, where we are looking, and not just with our eyes, but with our mind, with our mind's eye, what we are thinking upon, what our thoughts are on. So the word dot means knowledge, and that's really the only English word given in the lexicon. But when you go into the parent roots is where you really see the deep meaning. Dalet ayin we have talked about before. It's about what you see and what you experience. Most ancient meaning is the door of the eye. And remember that the eye is the door. And Abba Father has always told me this for a very long time, even from way before I became fully awake. He always told me that the eyes and the ears are the windows to the soul. And I've been learning more and more what that really means. Yeshua is always talking about the eyes and the ears, those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, and he's talking about our spiritual eyes and ears. But also what we experience going through this life with our physical hearing and sight, it's all about what we experience, and that is what teaches us about the unseen. And this is why his word was manifest in all of creation, because everything that we experience is to teach us. And I'm going to read you what the lexicon says. The eye is the window into every man's being. Experience is gained through visual observation, and knowledge is achieved through these experiences. And this was my point about the last couple weeks of my life. And he really caused me to be so busy with living experience that I wasn't able to have the type of time that I usually take for sitting down with my Bible and looking up the Otiot and translating Scripture. And it's not a bad thing to be studying his word, but he really wanted to give me a life lesson about this message right now. The key of knowledge is experiencing life with YHWH inside us. YHWH, YHWH and his living word and his ruach, his breath, converging inside our soul, teaching us about everything that we're experiencing, everything that we see, everything that we hear, and then the thoughts that come from those experiences. And then our thoughts are like a conversation with Abba. This is why thought is prayer. So whatever we are thinking about, if our attention and our desire is to learn from YHWH, you can conversate with him all day long through everything that you do. And this is what was taken away. What was taken away is us just relying on our Abba inside us to teach us about everything, because we started relying on the words of man, seeking approval from the words of man. And the other roots of this word knowledge are ayin tau, is talking about time, as in a period of time or like a moment. And these are the moments through life that we are experiencing. And the other root, which is dalet tau, means entering with a mark. And this is the only way that we can enter his kingdom, is with his mark. And his mark is him inside us. And when you see in Scripture, when it talks about, the mark on the forehead and on the right hand, this is not talking about a physical mark. This is talking about what is in our mind and what we are reaching for. It is about what we are receiving. Whose teaching are we receiving? This is where my phone stopped recording, so this message is to be continued in part 2. He has so much more to teach us about his key of knowledge. Also, I didn't get a chance to let everyone know that Abba has also led me to disable comments. This is not to follow caregiver, but to follow Abba's instructions about this, which he has been preparing me about for quite some time, from the beginning of this channel. I'll be taking more time to talk about this in part 2, because it actually has everything to do with the key. But for now, I pray that you will talk to YHWH about this, so that my words will only be a witness to what he has already caused you to understand. Until then, I love you guys so much. Stay yoked. Shalom.
Sister, your cries are like thunder. gonna take this time to free your soul? Caroline, what's it gonna take this time? Free your soul, Caroline. Free your soul, free your soul. How you ever gonna find your way back home, Caroline? Free your soul, free your soul, free your soul, free your soul, Caroline. Yeah, you know we're gonna